Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ghana Ghanatam Tasya Kalyana Gurnana Vasya Bande Gora Shri Charana Vrindam Tasya Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam 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 Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nritya Gita Vaditra Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Bajo Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Romanchakam Pasu Taranga Bajo Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shingaratanma Niramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktamsya Niyunjatapi Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shanga Kritaiva Triptin Bhajata Shadeva Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Shiradhikama Gavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradhikama Madhura Lila Pratikchanasa Kanalalupasya Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Bande Gora Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne Kunjayono Rati Kelisi Dhyai 야야리베리족들 아페샤네야 니콘자요 Tatrati Atibalabhasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravinda Sajjadharitena Samasta Shastri Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhuvi Sajjadharitena Kintu Prabharja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Gorashi Charanara Vrinda Sya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Dhyayam Stuvam Stasya Yasastin Sandhyam Bande Garashi Charanarvindam Dhyayam Stuvam Stasya Yasastin Sandhyam Bande Garashi Dhyayam Stuvam Stasya Yasastin Sandhyam Bande Garashi Charanarvindam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Bande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Nama O Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaho Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Bol. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Damodar Stakamasa ki jai. Gaura Pramanande.
नमाम ईश्वरं शचित् आनन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानम् जशोधावेयो लोकलाघवमानं परामृष्टमात्यन्ततो द्रुतगोप्या यशोधावेयो लोकलाघवमानं परामृष्टमात्यन्ततो द्रुतगोप्या यशोधावेयो रुदन्तं मोहनेत्रं युग्ममृजान्तं कराम्बोजयुग्मेन सतङ्कनेत्रम् मोहोश्वासकं पात्विरेखककण्ठा स्थिताग्रैवं दामोदरं भक्तिपदम् इति दृक्स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुन्दे स्वघोषणे माजन्तम् आख्यापयन्तम् तदीयेषितागेषु भक्तजितात्वं पुनः प्रेमतास्तं सदा वृते वन्दे तदीयेषितागेषु भक्तजितात्वं पुनः प्रेमतास्तं सदा वृते वन्दे वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षवदे चान्यामृणेऽहं वरे सदपिह इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबालम् सदा मे मनस्य वीरास्तं किमन्ये इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपालबालम् सदा मे मनस्य वीरास्तं किमन्ये इदं ते मुखाम्बोजम् आत्यन्तनीर्ले ऋतं कुण्ठलैः स्निग्धरक्त्यैश्च गोप्य मोहोश्चुम्बितां बिम्बरक्तधरां मे मनस्य वीरास्तं मालं लक्षलाभे नमो देव दामोदरानन्द विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलब्धिमग्नम् नमो देव दामोदरानन्द विष्णु प्रसीद प्रभो दुःखजलब्धिमग्नम् कृपादृष्टिवृष्यति दीनं वचानो गृहाणे क्षमामाज्ञं मेद्यक्षिदृश्य कुबेरात्मजौ बद्धमूर्तेव यद्वा त्वया मुचितौ भक्तिभाजौ कृतौश्च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वखं मे प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो मेऽस्ति दामोदरेह नमस्ते स्तुदाम्ने स्फुरादीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदरायाथ विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमस्ते स्तुदाम्ने स्फुरादीप्तिदाम्ने त्वदीयोदरायाथ विश्वस्य दाम्ने नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमो नञ्चलीलायै देवयतोभ्यम् Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodar Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Radha Damodar Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Oh Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Oh Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Srila Gurudev, Jaya Gurudev. Oh Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Radha Damodar Juki, Shri Radha Damodar Juki, Shri Radha Damodar Juki. Narasimhaya, Namaste Narasimhaya, Dalad Thai. Hiranyakashir Purvashaha, Sulatankana Kalaye. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha, तोयामि ततो नरसिंह बाहे नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलबहे नाखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गां दालिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवस्थिता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवद्विता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवद्विता नरहरिरूपा जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव सिंहदेव भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गोपाल गो प्रेमानंदे हरि बोल
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priye. Oh, Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvrajagacharya Astu Tarasara Shishimad Iskon Pratishtha Bibhiti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Sramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prem Bhakti Datta Paritapavana is divine grace Abhacharvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai श्री गौर्य गुरु वर्गापति चौधार की जय श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास गुण सतगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री द्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमान गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महाप्रभु अवतार की जय गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहदांग ट्रांसनेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। द लॉर्डशिप श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रादेव सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्वविघ्न विनाशन कर सिंहदेव भगवान की जय। जय गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। श्री कार्तिक मास की जय। गौर प्रमानंदे। All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo He Abhilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo He Abhilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo He Abhilashi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pava He Abhilashi.
Je tomar sharan loy Tara vanch purna ho.
Je tomar sharanala Tara vancha puna.
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavan vasi.
Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavana vasi.
Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavan vasi.
Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavana vasi.
તોમાર શરણ લો તારા વંચ પૂર્ણા હો
તમારા શરણાલા તારા બંચ
કૃપા કોરી કોરો તારે વૃંદાવન વાસી
તમે કૃપા કરી કરા તરે વૃંદાવન વાસી
મોરાએ અભિલાષ વિલાસ કુંજે દિયો વાસ
મોરાય વિલાસ કુંજ દિયાવા
નયને હરિબો સદા યુગલ રૂપ રાસી
અમે નાયાને રીવ સદા જુગલ રૂપરાસી
નયને હરિબો સદા યુગલ રૂપ રાસી નમો નમઃ તુલસી કૃષ્ણ પ્રેયાસી નમો નમઃ
તુલસી કૃષ્ણ પ્રેયસી નામ નમઃ
એ નિવેદન ધારો સખીરનુગતિ કરો
એ નિવેદનાધાર સખીરનુગત કર
સેવાધિકાર દિયે કરો નિજ દાસી
સેવાયારે કર દિયે કર નિજ દાસી
દીના કૃષ્ણ દાસ ખો હે જેના મોરા હો
દીના કૃષ્ણ દાસે કયા એ નામ રામ
વીરા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદાય નવાસી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદાય નવાસી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય ન ભાષી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદાય નવાસી
યાની કાની ચા પાપાની બ્રહ્માત્યધિકાની ચા તાની તાની પ્રનાશંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણ પદે પદે
જાને કાને પાપાને બ્રહ્મહત્યરે કનેશા તને તાને પ્રનાશંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણ પદે પદે
યાની કાની ચ પાપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યાદિકાની ચા તાની તાની પ્રાનાશંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણ પદે પદે
જાને કાને સપાપાને બ્રહ્માત્યધિકારે તાને તાને પ્રાનાશંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણ પદે પદે
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol
Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyaye Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyaye Ke Sava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradideve Shattavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaya Tulasi Devai Priyaya Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradideve Shattavataye Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha. Shanta we his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him in making resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves, Shri Vrindavan Dham. Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me as follow the Kaveri Games as Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me all men servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna, please. May I always feel love Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shikyastakam Ki Jai.
Cheto Darpanamarjanam Bhava Mahabhagi Nirvahanam Shairakaira Vichandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vatuhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vichayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahudani Sarva Saktis Tatra Pitali Amitak Smaranena Kala Etad Rishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaivam Jusisamihajjanina Anuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarurati Sahishtana Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Ladanam Lajanam Lasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhaktira Haituki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Padapankajastita Dudisad Visham Vichintaya Nayanam Galadasarudharaya Vadanam Gadgadurudaya Jira Pulakaya Sitam Vapukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayitam Nimesena Chaksusa Pavrasayatam Sunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Aslishya Padaratam Pinastumam Adashranam Amahato Karotuva Yata Tata Vavidata Tulampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Naparaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki
Jai. Namo Spiritual Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tirani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Charani Vishesha Namaskari Satani. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate to have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name. When my voice choke up and one of the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pachani Nivasesi Sunyani Paskatya Satarni. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names of the Lord that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the names of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Vichari Nivasesi Sunyani Paskatya Stani. Gaura Premanandi Haribo. So today is called Sharad Purnima. And this is the day that Krishna danced with the gopis in the Rasa Leela. So we're going to hear today about the Rasa Leela, and we're going to celebrate Sharad Purnima in the traditional way that it's been celebrated for since the time of Krishna, and that is the Dandiya dance began in Vrindavan, and on today we're going to perform the Dandiya dance with the sticks outside during the early part of the Sunday feast, and then inside also. And this is the way it was celebrated by the gopis with Krishna. And this has been a traditional thing in the villages throughout India, especially in Gujarat, where the village people come together and they perform the Dandiya dance in remembrance of Krishna's Rasa Leela. So we're going to be like those villagers. We have a village also. It's called the Shicharada Nilamadhava Temple, and we have a community. So, and then also there'll be a parade today by young ladies who will be holding the matka, or the jar, the clay jar of kheer, which was put out by Mother, by Rasavati Devi Dasi, who who loves this festival, and she wants to see it respected and performed in a traditional way. Also, because the full moon is brighter than all the other full moons in the year, the deities are normally dressed in pure white clothes. Of course, we don't have that outfit this year, but we will have it next year. And they're decorated with beautiful, usually yellow flowers on this day. So, this is the remembrance and glorification of the Rasa Lila dance. And this is explained in the Krishna book, which says in chapter 29, the Rasa Lila, the introduction. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Rasa dance took place on the full moon night of the Sarat season. From the statements of previous chapters, it appears that the festival of Govardhana Puja was performed just after the dark moon night of the month of Kartika, and thereafter the ceremony of Bhartra Dvitiya was performed. Then the wrath of Indra was exhibited in the shape of torrents of rain and hailstones, and Lord Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days, until the 9th day of the moon. Thereafter, on the 10th day, the inhabitants of Vrindavana were talking amongst themselves about the wonderful activities of Krishna, and the next day, Ekadasi was observed by Nanda Maharaja. On the next day, Dwadasi, Nanda Maharaja went to take a bath in the Ganges and was arrested by one of the men of Varuna. Then he was released by Lord Krishna. Then Nanda Maharaj, along with cowherd men, was shown the spiritual sky. In this way, the full moon night of the Sarat season came to an end. The full moon night of Aswini is called Sarat Purnima. It appears from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna had to wait another year for such a moon before enjoying the rasa dance with the gopis. At the age of 7 years, he lifted Govardhan Hill. Therefore, the rasa dance took place during his 8th year. From the Vedic literature, it appears that when a theatrical actor dances among many dancing girls, the group dance is called a rasa dance. When Krishna saw the full moon night of the Sarat season, decorated with various seasonal flowers, especially the malika flowers, which are very fragrant, he remembered the gopis' prayers to goddess Katyayani, which is a form of Durga Mata, wherein they prayed for Krishna to be their husband. He thought that the full moon night of the Sarat season was just suitable for a nice dance, so their desire to have Krishna as their husband would then be fulfilled. So here you see that praying to demigods, well, there's a correct way of doing it and an incorrect way of doing it. The correct way of doing it is to understand that the demigods are servants of the Lord. And therefore, if one wants a benediction of being with Krishna or serving Krishna, just like we worship Prabhupada in Guru Puja, not considering him to be Krishna, but to consider him to be the representative of Krishna. And therefore, sometimes we pray to the Lord, pray to Prabhupada, please help me give up all my material desires and simply have desires to serve you and Krishna. So in the same way, the gopis approached Katyayani, not for any personal sense gratification or any personal material thing, but to have Krishna as their husband, or at least their paramour. And therefore, that type of prayer offered to a demigod is bona fide. You're not asking anything for yourself. You're asking to be able to serve Krishna intimately. Okay, so in every situation, there's a right way and a wrong way. Unfortunately, and then now we're going to hear more about that. So it says, he thought that the full moon night of the Sarat season was just suitable for a nice dance, so their desire to have Krishna as their husband would then be fulfilled. Okay. The words used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam are Bhagavan Api. This means that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus has no desire that needs to be fulfilled because he is always full with six opulences, he still wanted to enjoy the company of the gopis in the rasa dance. Bhagavan Api signifies that this dance is not like the ordinary dancing of young boys and young girls. The specific words used in Srimad Bhagavatam are Yogamayam Upasrita, which means that this dancing with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya, not Mahamaya. So Durga is Mahamaya, and but there is illusion in the spiritual world also, and that's called Yogamaya. So the Yogamaya illusion brings people closer to Krishna, and the Mahamaya illusion in the material world takes people away from Krishna. Now, is that a bad thing? And no, it's part of Krishna's plan. What is Krishna's plan? He wants everybody that's left him and come to the material world to try and enjoy sense gratification to come back to him. So there's two ways Krishna brings people back to him. One way is by speaking Bhagavad Gita and also being present in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma, which is the source of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And also by being and speaking the Shastra, like Bhagavad Gita, and then also in giving energy to the saints to preach the same message of Bhagavad Gita to everyone, and also in the form of the initiating spiritual master. So he does all this to help people come back to Godhead. On the other hand, for those people who are very recalcitrant, very obstinate, and don't really want to serve Krishna, they just want to serve themselves, Krishna helps them also by establishing the laws of karma, of punishment and reward, and also the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and also the time factor. All these things limit the ability of people to have sense gratification and eventually destroys that ability completely by the laws of material nature, which are birth, old age, disease, and death. So by this process of suffering, and don't forget, in Bhagavad Gita clearly says that this world is a world of suffering. There's no real happiness here because any sense gratification that we engage in is followed by misery. So, therefore, Krishna is teaching people that this is not a place to try and be happy or have an eternal life. It's not possible. The laws of material nature are too strict. And therefore, by continual frustration, eventually a person arrives at the conclusion, why am I suffering? That is the beginning of spiritual life for the recalcitrant, obstinate, sense gratifiers. When they ask that question, why am I suffering? And if they try and seek the answer by approaching genuine devotees, they get the answer. They're suffering because it's impossible to be happy in the material world. You can only be happy in the spiritual world. In the material world, there are short periods of so-called mundane happiness, but it always followed by misery. That's a law of nature. So people are trying to do something impossible in the material world, and that is to find a permanent place where they can be happy, and that is impossible. So Krishna is teaching us in two ways, by delivering Bhagavad Gita and empowering saints and genuine sadhus and brahmanas, and especially acharyas, and also the initiating gurus who are representative of Krishna. So here it says, the rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis is on the platform of Yogamaya. It's not on the platform of Mahamaya. So yesterday a question was asked, is Durga an expansion of Radharani? The answer is that Durga is an indirect expansion of Radharani, because Radharani is only dealing with loving affairs with Krishna, whereas Durga is the warden of the prison, and her job is to reward people material benedictions and then to take it away from them, either abruptly or slowly. When they slowly are taken away by Durga, people go crazy. When they're abruptly taken away by Durga, they become completely confused and bewildered, and sometimes they start asking questions. Why did this happen to me? So we see Durga's job is to take people away from Krishna, but first giving them material benedictions and then taking those benedictions away and completely smashing them until they're totally frustrated. Now, some people are so hell-bent on sense gratification that even though they're frustrated, they're defeated, still they don't give up the desires. So it can go on life after life for many, many times until they finally realize that, hey, I don't want to suffer anymore. I got to find out why this is happening. So, therefore, the dancing of young boys and girls with in the material world is in the kingdom of Mahamaya, or the external energy. Well, we saw that last week at the Garba that we organized. And that was definitely on the level of Mahamaya. That's why we're going to do it again today on the level of Yogamaya. The difference between the platforms of Yogamaya and Mahamaya is compared in the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the difference between gold and iron. From the viewpoint of metallurgy, gold and iron are both metals, but the quality is completely different. Similarly, although the rasa dance and Lord Krishna's association with the gopis appear like the ordinary mixing of young boys and girls, the quality is completely different. The difference is appreciated by great Vaishnavas because they can understand the difference between love of Krishna and lust. On the Mahamaya platform, dances take place on the basis of sense gratification. But when Krishna called the gopis by sounding his flute, they very hurriedly rushed toward the spot of the rasa dance with the transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna. The author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification, and love also means sense gratification, but for Krishna. So, when the sense gratification is for ourselves, that's lust. And when we want to give all sense gratification for Krishna, that's exactly what the pujari does when they offer arti. They're offering Krishna things that are pleasant and pleasing to him, like a incense, and like food or boga, and like nice singing and dancing, and like a ghee lamp, and a chamara, and the peacock feathers. So all these things are for pleasing the senses of Krishna. That's the difference between Mahamaya and Yogamaya. Mahamaya, we're acting for our own sense gratification. In Yogamaya, we're acting uniquely for the pleasure of Krishna. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification, and love also means sense gratification, but for Krishna. In other words, when activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, they are called material activities. But when they are enacted for the satisfaction of Krishna, they are spiritual activities. On any platform of activities, the principle of sense gratification is there. But on the spiritual platform, sense gratification is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whereas on the material platform, it is for the performer. For example, on the material platform, when a servant serves a master, he is trying to satisfy not the senses of his master, but rather his own senses. The servant would not serve the master if the payment stopped. That means the servant engages himself in the service of the master just to satisfy his own senses. On the spiritual platform, however, the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serves Krishna without payment. That's why Prabhupada, he was clearly saying that no one should be paid in the temple, that it should be offered gratuitously out of love for Krishna. So then there are some people who come and serve occasionally, and there are other people that are serving continually. For those who are serving continually, if they accept only what the temple agrees to give to them, that is not considered a payment. It's considered a stipend for bare minimum needs. When someone desires more than that, they cannot live in a temple. They have to live outside. They can get married and live outside and make as much money as you want. And if you want to give some of it to the temple, that's fine. The law is you should give 50%, but nobody really wants to give 50%, so they give 10%, like in the Catholic Church. Some people give 1%, some people give 0.5%, some people don't give anything. But ultimately, we should give 100%. Now, you might not be able to do it right away, but you have to come to the position eventually to give 100%. Otherwise, you cannot go back to Godhead. As long as we keep something for ourselves, we will stay in the material world. But it's not expected that it should happen overnight. Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. It doesn't happen immediately. You can surrender immediately, but to be pure, completely purified, it takes time. Okay, so as mentioned above, it appears that Krishna enjoyed the Rasa Leela dance with the gopis when he was 8 years old. At that time, many of the gopis were married, because in India, especially in those days, girls were married at a very early age. There are even many instances of a girl giving birth to a child at the age of 12 who wanted to have Krishna as their husband were already married. At the same time, they continued to hope that Krishna would be their husband. Their attitude toward Krishna was that of paramour love. Therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna with the gopis are called parakya rasa. Now, this parakya rasa, if it happens on a material level, it's the worst thing. That is, a wife cheats on her husband, or a husband cheats on the wife and goes with someone else. That is the worst thing. But on the spiritual level, it's the best thing. There's swakya and parakya. So the wives of Krishna in Dwarka are swakya love for the Lord. But the gopis in Vrindavan is parakya love for the Lord. So the intensity is different. But anyway, both the wives of Krishna in Dwarka love him and the gopis love him, but the intensity of love is greater in Goloka. Okay, so therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna with the gopis are called parakya rasa. The attitude of a married man who desires another wife, or a wife who desires another husband, is called parakya rasa. Now, the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So what does that mean? And not only that, it's a perverted reflection in darkness. So it means that whatever is happening in the spiritual world is upside down in the material world, and it's not actually eternal. It's a temporary thing, like a reflection in darkness. Now, what is a reflection in darkness? When you're driving your car at night, if you look through the driver's side window on a very dark night, you will see a reflection of yourself. That reflection is illusory. But you can try it. In fact, don't keep looking at the reflection. You might have an accident. But but when it's very dark at night, and you might have a little bit of light in your car, if you look like this, you'll see your reflection. That's actually an illusory thing. It's not real, but it looks real. So that is what we're seeing in the material. Everything we're seeing in the material world is a perverted, illusory reflection of what's happening in the spiritual world. Therefore, you have to be purified completely of lust, anger, greed, etc. to be able to have a vision of the spiritual world with transcendental senses. Now, your soul has transcendental senses, but right now, your soul and my soul are covered by the material body, which obstructs the spiritual vision. So whatever vision we have is that perverted vision of a type of mirage or a reflection in darkness. Okay, so actually Krishna is the husband of everyone because he is the supreme enjoyer. Okay, so when it says everyone, it means men and women. All of us have a female relationship with Krishna. He is the Purusha and we are the enjoyed. He is the enjoyer and we are the Purusha. The gopis wanted Krishna to be their husband, but factually, there was no possibility of his marrying all the gopis. But because they had that natural tendency to accept Krishna as their supreme husband, the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is called Parakya Rasa. This Parakya Rasa is ever existent in Goloka Vrindavana. Notice it doesn't say Vaikuntha. In the spiritual sky, where there is no possibility of inebriety. Inebriety means intoxication, which characterizes Parakya Rasa in the material world. So people are intoxicated. That's why they drink wine. They go out on a date with somebody else's wife, or the wife goes out on a date with somebody else's husband, and they drink wine and liquor, and then they enjoy sense gratification. So that sense gratification is always in a stupor of intoxication, either intoxicated by the false ego or intoxicated by drugs, such as coffee, tea, wine, beer, etc. There are many relationships with Krishna: master and servant, friend and friend, parent and son, lover and beloved. Out of all these rasas, the Parakya rasa is considered to be the topmost. This material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. The topmost part of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Similarly, Parakya rasa, when pervertedly reflected in this material world, is most abominable. So if you look, when there's a tree growing on the edge of land next to a river, if you look in the river, you'll see the reflection of the tree on the water, but it looks upside down. And if you look at the tree, the branches are up and the root is down. You look at the reflection, it looks like the opposite, where the top of the tree is on the bottom and the root part is on top. So we see why it says that everything we see in the material world, we are seeing as a perverted reflection, meaning upside down, of a reflection in darkness, which means what we're seeing is actually illusory. Not that it's false, because it's part of the plan of Krishna. Therefore, it cannot be complete illusion. But it's illusory because we think it's true. That's the illusion. It's not that the reflection in darkness doesn't exist. It exists, but it's only temporary. But our accepting it as real, that's the illusion. Okay, so this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. The topmost part of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Similarly, Parakya rasa, when pervertedly reflected in this material world, we enjoy the perverted, abominable reflection of the transcendental Parakya rasa. There is no possibility of enjoying this transcendental Parakya rasa within the material world. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not imitate this Parakya rasa even in dream or imagination. Those who do so drink the most deadly poison. When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, desired to enjoy the company of the gopis on that full moon night of the Swarat season, exactly at that very moment, the moon, the Lord of the stars, appeared in the sky, displaying its most beautiful features. The full moon night of the Swarat season is the most beautiful night in the year. Wow. So tonight, when you're seeing the moon, you can understand this is the most beautiful night of the year. Last night also the moon was very, very bright and beautiful. Tonight it's going to be at its zenith. The full moon night of the Sarat season is the most beautiful night in the year. In the Indian city of Agra in Uttar Pradesh province, there is a great monument called the Taj Mahal, which is a tomb made of first-class marble stone. During the night of the full moon of the Sarat season, many foreigners go to see the beautiful reflections of the moon on the tomb. Thus, this full moon night is celebrated even today for its beauty. So it's not that the Taj Mahal is specifically beautiful. It's the reflection of the moon on the Taj Mahal that is exceedingly beautiful. Taj Mahal, after all, is simply a funeral, not a funeral, but a tomb for a dead body. So it's not a temple. It's a tomb for a dead body. It's a mausoleum. That's what it's called, a tomb for a dead body. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkuma. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkuma. This long-expected moonrise of the Sarat season was thus smearing the eastern sky. I don't know how many husbands smear their wife's face with kumkuma today, but obviously it was a practice in the time of Krishna. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkuma. When a husband long separated from his wife returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkuma. This long-expected moonrise of the Sarat season was thus smearing the eastern sky. The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers. The atmosphere was cooling and festive. When Lord Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. Their attraction to the vibration of the flute increased 1,000 times due to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty, and when they heard the vibration of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. So don't forget, when it says lustful, they're not lusting for their own satisfaction. They're lusting to please Krishna. There's a big difference between the two. Immediately upon hearing the vibration of flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran very swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed toward the place known as Vamsivata. You can visit Vamsivata today in Vrindavana. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil, but she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go to see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families. But they left all such engagements and immediately rushed toward the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but caring neither to serve their husbands or eat, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately, they could not finish their cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies, and the upper part on the lower part. While all the gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places. Now look, let's say you're in Vaikuntha, or you're in Goloka and you're seeing this, and you just came there from the earth, from the material world. You say, whoa, this is wrong. They're making mistakes. How can there be mistakes in the perfection of Goloka, Vrindavan? The mistakes are also part of the program. It's showing that their eagerness to see Krishna supersedes everything else, such as putting your clothes on right or putting the cosmetics on right. So you see, love of Krishna trumps everything. And it doesn't mean Donald Trump. It means it trumps everything. It means surpasses everything else. Trump has different meanings in English. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another, "My dear friend, if you desire to enjoy the company of material society, friendship, and love, then please do not go to see the smiling boy Govinda, who is standing on the bank of the Yamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight." Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs that one who has been captivated by the beautiful, smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification. So, going to Disneyland, going to Reno or Las Vegas, going and doing nonsense things, all those things are rejected by the pure devotees. They cannot imagine even 1 second away from the service of Krishna. And they have no desire for personal sense gratification. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as is stated in Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart, with faith and love, is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. Yoginam apisarve samad gatanatarakmana shadamam bhajate yomam sa me yukta tamao matak. The 6th chapter, 47th verse. They proved to be the greatest yogis, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart, with faith and love, is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. Actually, a yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis, who could not personally go to Krishna, began to meditate on him in perfect yoga, as perfect yogis. So we see this meditation of the so-called yogis is not real meditation. Real meditation is when you focus completely on Krishna and his transcendental form, and you offer your service to Krishna mentally. So you go through all the steps of the service, but mentally, and offer to Krishna with love and devotion. Okay, we'll stop right there. There's a lot more to read on this chapter. If you're interested, come a little bit later on, and we'll continue. But understanding the real meaning of service to Krishna and the difference between Yogamaya and Mahamaya is extremely important to understand. Otherwise, you mix everything up, and you end up with something that's not bona fide. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Any questions? It has to be one question.
So while Krishna was here, both Mahamaya and Yogamaya were simultaneously present, but they were operating on different living entities. I mean,
Well, Mahamaya is in the material world, Durga Mata. Right? So, this is an interesting point. There's a theory called determinism, which means that the living entity has no independence. Everything that the living entity does is they're forced to do it. Now, do we believe in Krishna consciousness that there is that absolute determinism? No. There's one thing that's not regulated by the laws of karma, Laws of karma are deterministic, right? Whatever you did in your past life, you get the reaction in this life. It could be from many past lives also, but you get it in what's happening to you now is predetermined by your karma. But there's one thing that is not subject to karma, and that is surrender to Krishna. Okay? So, see, what happens in the material world, there are theories, right? So the deterministic theory exists in the material world. And there's different aspects of it. It's an absolute determinism or partial determinism, and then there's indeterminism, right? But all of those are more or less speculative. But the real fact is there's one thing that's not subject to the laws of karma, and that is surrender to Krishna. So if you surrender, if you can be the worst person in the world, and let's look at it. You have Ajamil, who was really bad for most of his life, right? But he named his son, his last son, Narayana. And he was always saying, hey, Narayana, come here. Narayana, take out the trash. Hey, Narayana, what you doing? Did you do your homework or you didn't do your homework? So he was always chanting the name of the Lord. Although he didn't mean the Lord, he meant his son. But because the name is transcendental, Narayana, he made Agyata Sukriti. He made unwitting devotional service because he was repeating the name of the Lord. And at the moment of death, he also was calling his son, Narayana, Narayana, and he dies. So he became purified of all those sins that he committed for many, many years, and some of them were very egregious sins. So this was incomprehensible to the agents of Yamaraj, the Yamadutas, because they had never heard or they had never experienced something like this. They come to get Ajamil and take him to Narak to be punished because they know he's a big sinner. But they didn't realize that even saying the name of Narayana and meaning something else, you still get purified. That's called it. Because Narayana is absolute. The name is also absolute. Krishna is absolute. The name is also absolute. So that's why previously people would name their children Narayana, Govinda, Krishna, Madhava, and so forth, because they knew if they named their children like that, they'll be also repeating the name of God regularly in their life, which is beneficial. Or they call their daughter Radharani or Lakshmi or Sita Devi, like that. So they're always chanting the name of the Lord throughout their life, even though they might be calling their children. Nowadays, they say, oh, my child, I'm going to name my child Joe, or Billy, or LaShawn, or, what benefit do you get by naming your child those names, you see? So Vedic culture was integrally, let's say, organized to go back to Godhead. See? So we should be practicing Vedic culture. We shouldn't be practicing this other culture, which is all nonsense. What benefit do you get? Hey, Joe, come here. What? Joe Schmo. There's no benefit in the name Joe, right? Okay. So even the Christians, now look at the Muslims. The most popular name now in many European countries is Muhammad. Now the Christians, they'll use other names, right? Some of them, like I have a accountant. His name is Christian, right? I told him the other day. I said, "You got a pretty nice name." He said, "Yeah, it's because you're saying the name of Christ, or you're saying the name Christian or Krishna." So we see if we practice Vedic culture in all its different aspects, we will go back to Godhead naturally, because we're always connected to the Lord through His holy name and His prasadam and etc. Yeah. So the question is, what was your question again?
when Krishna was present, both Mahamaya and
Yeah, well, Mahamaya is present right now, but we choose Yogamaya. So Yogamaya means that we are always acting in the spiritual level, right? So Yogamaya is helping us come closer to Krishna. Mahamaya is helping us going away from Krishna, so that we get suffering and we realize that we've made a lot of mistakes, and then we try and find out why this is happening to us. And then if you meet a devotee, he can explain correctly why it's happening. Just like we see over here, 5,000 years ago, Krishna said, don't do these 4 self-destructive habits: meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, and intoxication. Well, those 4 things are part of American culture today, right? And look at the result. Look at all the people that are dying because of it, you see. So if we follow Krishna's instructions, that means we're going to be protected by Yogamaya. And if we don't, then we're under the supervision of Mahamaya. And so the Hindus today, most of them are under the supervision of Mahamaya, because they're performing all kinds of rituals for their own benefit, not for the pleasing the Lord, right? So there's no difference between the karmis and most Hindus today, unfortunately. Now, our business is to give the right knowledge. So what I want to do is next year for Navaratri, explain who Durga actually is and what is her function, right? It's not simply she killed Mahisasura. There is a spiritual aspect to that. The spiritual aspect is that Durga is a jiva, like Vivaswan, like Varuna, like Chandra, like Indra. They're all demigods, and they're highly advanced demigods, but they still have the desire to dominate. So Durga was born by Vishnu to kill Mahisasura. That means she's a jiva. She is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Ramakrishna says she is, and as so many other people believe. And as some people, by misinterpreting the Daivi Purana, think that she is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We should explain who she is actually during that 9-day period of Navaratri, because that's not being done right now. She's being worshipped as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's up to us to preach correctly on all these different topics, because this world is full of speculation and illusory theories, and this is ruining people's lives. Okay, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the question. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Ki Jai.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhaga అందముయి సావధానమాతే जाहर प्रसादे भाई ए भव तोरिया जय कृष्ण प्राप्ति हो जाह होते गुरुमुख परमावाक्य जीते ते कोरिया क्या अरना कोरी हो मने आशा श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उतामा गति जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वाशा जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वाशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जाह होते अविद्या विनाश जते प्रेम भक्ति जाह होते अविद्या विनाश जते हे भेजाय गुणर चरितो वेद गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनर बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधम जनर बंधु लोकना लोकेर जीवाना लोकना लोकेर जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादा छाया हा हा प्रभु करो दया देह मोरे पादा छाया हे भेजास कुशु त्रिभुवाना जया प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नाम ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fulfills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scripture sing his character.